for a categorical for students with special needs. This is shameful and irresponsible at best. The budget needs to be finalized, and it shouldn't be done at midnight on September 30. I've seen that show before, and it ends in a bad budget for our kids. We urge all of our elected officials to pass a reasonable budget as possible. Come October 1st, despite the lack of timeliness on the part of our elected officials, CC-RESA and our local districts will be ready to continue to provide a safe, welcoming learning environment and a high-quality education for all of the students and families that we serve. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Lori Haven,
I'm Mary Haven, Perry Public Schools. Perry Public Schools serves a rural community in mid-Michigan. Like every district across the state and what we're hearing today, we rely on a finalized state budget over the summer for the school year. This allows us to thoughtfully allocate our resources to benefit our students. Because the legislature failed to pass the budget by its July 1st deadline, we're forced to operate in the dark. The uncertainty isn't just an item that needs to be taken care of. It has real consequences for our schools, for our students. In theory, we've already been forced to make difficult decisions. We've reduced staff positions. We're looking at larger class sizes, and we've held off on purchasing things that are needed for the fall. Every day without a budget puts pressure on the very programs that we're so proud to deliver to help our kids thrive. For example, our after-school programs, robotics, athletics, and other extracurriculars, along with important academic and social and emotional supports. This situation will become critical if we don't receive scheduled state on October 20th. Perry Public Schools could face a cash flow crisis. In the coming months, this would force us to take out high-interest loans in order to make our payroll to keep our schools open, which is right for kids. This is a senseless waste of taxpayer dollars, and it should be going into our classrooms rather than being used because we don't have a budget. This is created simply because the legislature has not completed its most basic duty. What's most frustrating is that this is entirely avoidable. It's a crisis that shouldn't be. Our lawmakers need to stop the deadlock, and they need to honor the purpose of the school aid fund that the voters approved for K-12 education and pass a responsible budget immediately. Our students and our staff and our Perry community deserve better, and all districts and children deserve the stability of a fully funded school year. Now I'd like to introduce Superintendent Craig Hoekstra from Wyoming Public Schools.
Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Craig Hoekstra, the proud superintendent of Wyoming Public Schools. Wyoming is in West Michigan. We have 4,000 scholars that attend Wyoming Public Schools that are served by 500 staff. And coming into the school year, it was awfully difficult to plan for a school year with no budget. So our team came together, we planned, put multiple budgets together, we put one in place. But as now that we're in day 72 of past that budget deadline, it makes things even increasingly more difficult. And to plan for a school year, we want to maximize what we did last year and leverage that strength into an even better school year this year. So it's been awfully difficult to position positions that we've had in the past that we have to make hard decisions about. Can we afford those moving forward? So what needs to happen is our Lansing lawmakers have to stop having our kids be political pawns. We need a fair budget that's right for kids, that we can do what's in the best interest of the growing needs of our kids that we serve in Wyoming and all across the state of Michigan. So a little more context about Wyoming Public Schools. So 4,000 kids. Of those 4,000 kids, they come from 35 different countries and speak 29 different languages. We also have 27% of our students receive some level of EL support. And I share that as a point of pride because our diversity certainly is a point of pride. But with that diversity are lots of layers of need and support and resources that we need to maximize that. So please make sure that you call your lawmakers, get your voice out there, because we need to change this. Pass a fair budget and not allow our kids to be political pawns. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Colby Fletcher, Superintendent of Escanaba Public Schools.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Colby Fletcher. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in the Escanaba Area Public Schools.
We're a district of about 2,000 students in the Upper Peninsula. In speaking to my colleagues in the Upper Peninsula, we are already seeing significant impacts from the budget delays. Those range from layoffs to paused programming to other impacts. I'll give you a specific example out of the Menominee ISD. They were approved for a Strong Beginnings grant, which means that they're able to provide a special classroom for 3-year-old students in an early childhood education setting. Because of the budget delays, they were unable to staff for that program and open that program. And this is after they invested significant amounts of time and financial resources to create a classroom to house that program. This is having a very real impact on students and families in that area who now have to struggle and scramble to find childcare. Early childhood education has been a priority for the governor. She stated that over and over and over again. And this is the type of programming that it would seem aligns well with that vision. In my district, Escanaba, I'm kind of unique. I'm in an area that has a large population of elderly and retired residents, which means we have a lot of folks that are on an income that's not very flexible. And that means that they tend to vote against additional tax levies for things like building improvements and maintenance. The funding that I have to use to do that is my savings. If we don't have a budget, I'm going to be forced to use those savings to keep the doors open for our students. If I do that, that's simply less funding that I then have in order to take care of any building maintenance or improvement things that we want to do, which ultimately benefit our students and staff. And this is just simply unacceptable. We hear as superintendents and as people who work in schools over and over again from Lansing that schools should be held more accountable. I can't emphasize enough that we did our job. We all passed our budgets by July 1st for the upcoming school year. And we currently have a legislature that's breaking the law. And we can't have that. What we really need is for the legislature to pass a strong, responsible budget that meets the needs of our kids and allows us to fund schools and keep them open, and that takes into account the different costs of educating our students. I hope that happens soon. Now I would like to introduce Andrew Brody, Superintendent of Flat Rock Community Schools.
Thank you, Kobe. I'm Andrew Brody, Flat Rock Community Schools, which is in Lower Wayne County. We have about 1,800 students. The delay in passing a state school aid budget has placed an enormous strain on our ability to serve our students. We did our part, passing our budget by July 1st to ensure our kids had access to the services they need from day one. But without a finalized state budget, we were forced to make conservative guesses, creating uncertainty and limiting our ability to plan effectively. Adding to the challenge, the House passed their budget 2 months later than usual, introducing radical changes to school funding that further complicate our planning process. Every day that Lansing fails to act increases the likelihood of significant cuts to vital programs and services. These cuts could impact places in Flat Rock, such as our ability to provide school meals, our after-school programming, our academic coaching, any type of behavioral or academic support. Transportation incentives, which ensure that all of my transportation drivers get 40 hours per week. Food service reductions, and non-special education para support. These are not decisions that we want to make, but they may become unavoidable due to Lansing's inaction. Meanwhile, Lansing continues to add new mandates and requirements for public schools without providing the resources needed to meet them. This creates an impossible situation for districts like ours, where the focus remains on doing what's right for kids. And to make matters worse, in the House budget, there's over $1 billion that looks like it's going to go to higher ed, which seems to me to be a shell game to move over to roads funding at some point. On October 1st, we will be at Flat Rock, committing to doing what's best for kids. And that's what it really is all about. And it's time for Lansing to do the same. Let's demand action and accountability so that every child in Michigan can thrive. And now I'm going to turn it over to John Van Wagner, Superintendent of Traverse City Area Schools, on Zoom.
Good afternoon. I'm John Van Wagner, the Superintendent of Traverse City Area Public Schools. We're the largest school district in northern Michigan with just under 9,000 students. In northern Michigan, we have a very tight labor market. It's hard to get educators up here, especially with the housing shortages that we have in our area and across the north. So when you have to delay making a hire or shutting down the program, it's going to be very difficult to get those people back. Even if we eventually get a budget done, damage has already been done on that front. We also partner with lots of other local agencies on housing and student needs for other initiatives. Those programs are also at risk right now without a budget. By not getting a budget done, it impacts our entire community, not just the school system. If a budget's not done soon, people will be laid off in these community programs because of this delay. And it's for physicians that serve our most vulnerable kids, those in poverty, those with mental health issues, those that need those critical services. So we need a budget now, but it has to protect funds that recognize the needs for these kids. Another example for us is transportation. It's a critical area up north for areas that serve well over 500, 1,000 square miles even, that a single district drives each and every day. It's critical that we have this, and it's a matter of equity. This is my 10th year as a superintendent in the north, and this is the hardest year so far to guess what our budget will be. The House and Senate budgets are so far apart that we cannot in good faith project what funding we eventually will get. We need to be able to hire teachers to put in front of kids, quality educators to do the great things we need to do, but we need to get a budget done. Thank you for your time.
All right, at this time, we'd like to open up the conversation to questions from the media. I'm not seeing any on Zoom right now, so I will turn to those in the room.
I've got some. Hi everyone, Lily Gwynn from Gongwer. So a couple weeks ago in one of his press conferences, Speaker Hall took a question about the impact that schools are seeing on their financial situation and everything from the lack of a budget. And his response was sort of that it's over dramatic or it's bluffing to say, to paraphrase him, because you know, you guys will get the money eventually and you know the money's coming, you just don't know when. And I was wondering if anyone could sort of respond to that and speak to, you know, why you might feel that's not the case.
I think one of our sitting soups should answer that question because you're the ones dealing with it, for sure. Go ahead.
I'll take a crack at that. So for us in Perry is a small rural community. We have just under 1,000 students. So our budget is small. So even the difference between $100 per student has a significant impact on how we allocate resources for students. So for someone to say that we know money's coming, so just wait for it, and I'm paraphrasing, is to me not respectful of the work that we do for kids, not how we intend to educate Michiganders. And when you have in particular a smaller budget, you don't have the wiggle room. You're not able to make purchases or invest in students the way that we know we need to invest to continue to provide the quality education that we expect to provide.
I'll answer that from an ISD or a RISA point of view as well. And so, as I shared earlier, I was a superintendent during the 07 and 09 shutdowns. And again, the difference here, as Dr. Van Wagner points out, is the proposals are so far apart. So we really don't know that money's coming. And for us at ERISA, what's very troublesome are the career and technical education dollars and early college dollars. So those dollars are completely eliminated from the House proposal. It's again about $61 million for the state. And in Clinton ERISA, we serve 400 kids in CTE programs that they're in right now at this very moment that we're running. And we serve 75 kids in our early middle college. So we don't know those dollars are coming. We've built programming. We want to fulfill our commitment for those kids and those families. And so it's not as easy to say, you know, those dollars are coming, particularly around CTE in our early middle colleges. Thank you.
All got a lot to say.
Yeah. You really opened the door with that question. I spoke about two very specific impacts from our area. One of those being the inability to start the Strong Beginnings classroom, which serves needy 3-year-olds. If the money comes, it's still going to take time to staff that program. The reality is that they may not even be able to get things up and running and fully staffed and going in this school year, or it could take through the end of the first semester. And it may seem like a small example, but the reality is we're depriving those children of an opportunity that they're never going to be able to recapture. And that's not just happening in the Menominee ISD, that's happening in places all around the state that received funding for the same grants. And you can't say that you support early childhood education out of one side of your mouth and then not provide the funding for it. And kids and families suffer in a very real way. What I worry about for my district, if I have to use savings to keep the door open, are we going to be able to recoup all that funding? Right? Are they going to apply that funding retroactively to the start of the school year? Or are we going to say, hey, this is a great way to create savings? Maybe we don't retroactively provide all of that funding. So we may be saying that, the funding will come, you'll get it. But realistically, do we really know that it's going to come? And do we really know that we're really going to get it? As schools, we're in a position of wait and see, which means that we delay things like maintenance. My design engineer always tells me for every year that you delay, plan on costs increasing at least 5% more. And that's a very real cost to schools like ours, where that's just how we fund our building improvements. So it's two very real ways where what the speaker is saying may not actually be correct.
Add as well when I get a chance.
Go ahead, John, and then I'm gonna, I'll do unmute. But go ahead and chime in.
Well, I think another key thing with the retirement components that are there, we pay an enormous amount in the retirement costs that we have as districts. And we have no idea what those costs are going to be. You have very different thoughts on that from the legislature right now. And for our payroll, that's a lot. And so we don't truly know in the end of what we have. Well, we may get something to be able to put in one pocket. The state is very well likely under the current proposal from the House, take it out of the other pocket, that we have to send back to Lansing. So to be able to say that we have an idea of what we have, that is not true. And so really trying to address all of the components of the budget before we know what that is really, really an important part.
Craig, do you want to give a remark, and then Kyle will go to you?
Yep. So as I mentioned, we're 72 days past the deadline. And the truth of the matter is we have just about 1.4 million kids in public education across the state. And the truth of the matter, or to add on to that, is there are many missed opportunities. What we would have planned for, but we couldn't because there's not a budget to plan with. And then also the opportunity that we get with kids each and every day, this is time that we cannot get back. So our role across the state with all educators is show up for kids in great ways, make their day, and then leave everything on the table that we did everything possible so their growth and development continues. So a response like that from Mr. Hall is extremely disappointing, and they just need to spend their time working on a budget rather than playing things out in the media.
Thank you. Kyle Davidson.
Thanks so much, Angela. I was just wondering, I know some of our speakers mentioned, districts having to take out loans in order to keep the lights on and keep staff paid. I was wondering if any of our speakers could kind of speak to that process. Obviously, we're in a bit of a weird spot with, districts usually getting their money from the state. So I was wondering what that process looks like and, what potential concerns that creates for districts.
I was the one that I think initially brought up, but I know Lori mentioned it and some of the others. The example I gave was between the service charges and the interest costs, they're looking at $70,000 to run that loan on 1.7 million. So that $70,000 again is being pulled for ancillary fees when that could be used for in the classroom. I don't know if anyone has a more specific, if you borrowed right now and kind of how you work through it. it's a very tedious process, having been through it as a former superintendent. It's not something they can say, hey, the state aid budget payment was supposed to be here October 20th. It didn't come, darn it. I'm going to go to the bank the 21st and get that loan. That's not how it works. It's not as simple as what you might think. It does take time. In fact, we're talking to our newer superintendent saying, if you don't have the cash flow, you need to be applying for your loans now. So even if the money comes, as we're hearing, they still have to have that contingency plan in place, which is critical. So.
I got a question, follow up, Lynn from MERS. You had mentioned early in your comments about a potential school shutting down. At what point in the calendar is that a realistic alternative for schools?
So speaking on behalf of the association, that is not something we want to do. But the reality is the state aid budget is supposed to be here October 20th. If the schools have not taken those contingency plans serious and have money in place to make their payroll, that could be a reality for them. We have counties that are talking and working together because obviously our number one goal is to have students in session, have a safe environment, ready to learn. But the reality is there are consequences for this budget not getting done. While the lawmakers don't seem to understand there's consequences, there are real consequences for our schools.
And one other question too, what percentage, roughly what percentage comes from the state, which comes from local property taxes?
That varies. Anybody got their number off the top of their head? Yeah, it's just.
Could we get maybe Mr. Hoekstra? Can you tell us what it is for Wyoming? How much of it do you get from state aid and how much of it comes from local property taxes?
So the majority, 85% from the state and the balance.
And then how about the statement from Carrie?
I would say that we are fairly similar to that.
85-15. How about Flat Rock?
Primarily the same. Majority of the money comes through our state aid now. Yep.
And then Mr. Fletcher from Escanaba.
It's roughly the same. The issue you see in a lot of districts is that the property taxes we collect are obviously based on property values. And so if you're in a district that doesn't have property values that are as high as other districts in the state, you receive a larger proportion of your funding from the state. We are in a low SED district. And so we do collect, roughly 15% or so from local property taxes, but the state has to supplement the rest. Thank you.
Kyle, I want to add to that too, if I can. So one of the reasons that we're seeing some of these consequences play out now is the daylight between the proposals that's been mentioned. It takes time to program how those budget dollars are distributed to school districts. So a normal budget year, you probably got 5 days to prep the state aid payment. Dr. K can correct me when I get wrong here. But in a situation like this, where we don't know what line items will be included, how much will be in those line items, whether they will be competitive, whether they will be formula, when they will go out, when they won't, it's going to take DTMB and the Department of Education a while to program the system that we apply for our state aid in, and that can delay those payments. So while if it's done on October 1 or 2nd or 3rd, or September 15th, it takes time to program the MEGS system to get those dollars to school districts. So pretty technical,
So that's why it could take weeks.
Yeah. It's not as simple as flipping a switch and sending the money.
Earlier today, Senator Anthony was asked whether she would commit to not moving school aid funds in the budget. And she did not commit, but she said she would commit to backfilling that state aid or the school aid fund. Are you guys comfortable with that? I feel like that's been proposed a few different times when the other
No.
Yeah, I've been doing this 17 years, and over that time, we have slowly watched the school aid fund become eroded for programs that have previously been funded by the general fund. And the school aid fund has served as the state's piggy bank when lawmakers want to spend more money but don't want to raise the revenue. And we're in that situation right now. There is not enough money, particularly with the changes at the federal government level, to fund a roads plan and keep all of the government open in the way that it was this year. So they're going to attempt to raid the school aid fund, and holding us harmless does not work. We've seen how that goes. We're the first to be cut when times are tough, because they've squeezed those school aid fund dollars out of the classroom and put them into higher education. And now they're talking about putting them into roads, taking a sales tax off at the gas pump, putting that into the Michigan Transportation Fund, really walking back the promise of Proposal A. The lottery likes to talk about putting $1.4 billion into schools. It's a flat out lie at this point. That money goes to something else. It does not go to K-12 classrooms. It funds higher education. It may fund roads. It may fund, whatever the idea of the day is. We have seen that time and time again. There's a list out there that the House Fiscal Agency compiles every year of programs that were previously funded by general fund. We call that the Stop the Bleeding list. We are literally bleeding out the school aid fund to support a general fund that no one has been willing to invest in.
Jump in as well, Peter. Thank you. Scott Connection, Clinton County Research. To build upon Peter's point, and he shared some of the numbers. Already over $1 billion is diverted out of the school aid fund into higher ed. As I mentioned in my comments, the House budget diverts another $1.5 billion to higher ed. And if you look at it cumulatively, I was around when this practice started as a superintendent. And since then, over $10 billion with a B has been diverted out of the school aid fund into other funding areas. So as Peter said, it's been going on for quite some time. But when you think about $10 billion, over $10 billion over time, that's a lot of money.
And how much of that's been put back?
No.
Kyle, you mentioned a good question earlier. I don't know what number of the speakers that you want to have on this.
Jason.
Oh,
Not yard.
all right. Jason Mellon, Superintendent, EMISC. You asked about programs. GSRP is differently funded than what schools are. There are GSRP programs that will be in trouble in early October. We have already communicated. Great Start Readiness, the free pre-K for all, the GSRP programs. We've already communicated to some of our CBOs with respect to cash flow. We don't have a budget. We're unclear with respect to when we're trying to get guidance from our auditors, but I would expect that there will be challenges. That not only has an impact for our students, but also families, because those programs provide needed daycare, which means family members are going to be staying home in order to take care of kids. So this is real. This isn't just a game. This isn't something we're waiting to and hoping that this gets done by October 5th so we can get our state aid payment by the 20th. This is something that's going to impact programs in early October.
Those who are not fluent, can't you speak?
But I want to make sure people know.
Just to clarify some earlier questions. So our districts, the two like options they have are either loans or capital savings at this point or shutdown.
That's it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, if any of you guys had to cut staff already, if so, how much teachers?
So we've not in Wyoming cut staff, but we certainly put a halt on new staff that we would like to because of the growing needs within our district, which has had an impact, which then further stresses current staff that's trying to do everything possible to meet the needs of our kids.
At Flat Rock, we've reduced staff through attrition. We just haven't brought back positions, and we've made class sizes bigger, which is something we have, a strategic plan that says we're trying our very best not to do.
I think to turn that question a little bit too, since we have so many in the room, how many of you are still waiting to settle your teacher contracts to see what your money is?
Show of hands.
That's what we're seeing, and I'm hearing from, especially in communication with our union partners, that is a problem that they can't settle their contracts.
And there was two of you that raised your hands, or was there?
Three in this room.
Three?
I just want to go back to the borrowing money. We're so fortunate in certain places around this state to have a fund balance that can sustain for a few months, but I don't think anyone here is flush with cash to get through an entire school year. Most of us run between 15 and 30, 35% in our fund balances. And once that money's eroded, we have to go borrow, and borrowing is expensive. It is not a borrower's market. So, and we would be paying the same rates that John Q. Public would pay when they go out to borrow money for whatever it is. And that's just bad money after good. And, the example of the $70,000, that's a teacher's total compensation for half of a school year, right? So that's a classroom that I cannot staff because I have to borrow money. So to Speaker Hall's point of you'll get the money eventually, well, that's great, but you've cost a lot along the way.
Yeah, one thing I've heard from so many folks, obviously, as you guys said here today, is that this will have a big impact on students. So I guess the overall question is, what steps, in your view, can families take now to possibly ease the burden that they might feel later?
Well, I don't think it's fair for us to be asking families to be taking any steps to ease the burden. I think the legislature should do their job and get the budget done. I don't think that question is fair to ask of our families. We are working hard to try and, as you've heard from these folks, mitigate the cuts to the classroom. But there are hundreds of school districts not represented in this room right now who are having very difficult decisions to face, and their families will have to face the consequences of the legislature's inaction. There's not much that I think a family should be asked to do because the legislature won't do their job.
Yeah, this might be for your others. Just wondering for those who are, involved with the legislative process, if there's any kind of hope or chance or likelihood in your view that the education budget could be moved separately from the, the full state budget at this point, or if, they're kind of lumped together in your view. And I guess, if that's the case, kind of your thoughts on the school funding, being roped into all these other areas.
My initial 2 cents is if that could have been done, it should have already been done. And so I feel like there's definitely a stalemate happening. And there, again, from the last press conference where we were at, why are we putting concrete over kids? I mean, that to me is just stuck, that we could have easily pushed through the school aid fund, but unfortunately it seems to be tied to the politics.
But I'll say, Sheldon, if there was political will to do it, as Tina said, it would have been done. And what's becoming ever clearer is that the legislature is looking to use school aid fund dollars, whether it's directly transferring it to higher education or squeezing the MIPSR system and reversing reforms we did last year to get more money out of the system to pay for those road improvements. If it was possible, it is possible. If it was politically viable, they would have done it, and it's not been done yet. And this is just one of those unfortunate byproducts of having 2 fiscal years. Schools start on July 1. We're mandated to do so. And that's why the law exists, to pass the budget by that deadline. And 72 days later, we still haven't seen the legislature work.
So just sort of a closing, lawmakers are in Lansing today. It's a session day. If there was any closing message to folks who are in the Capitol today, as they are presumably not taking anything up, certainly not taking up budget bills, what would that be?
I want to just say we have all these leaders in the room, and that is the plan, is they're headed from here to go downtown to Lansing to get that message across. They should be in their districts focused on the new school year, what the kids are doing, how they're operating, and instead they feel the urgency that they need to be here to make a point. So again, we need to get the job done, but the message is that we're coming for you, I guess is my message. So.
And I agree with Tina. I think the message is put aside partisan politics and get the budget done for schools. It's having a direct impact on students and families and communities across the entire state of Michigan. And every day we delay is a day of lost opportunity for our kids.
One of the things that we do as school leaders in our school, or as adults in school, not just leaders, we try to model for our students the behaviors and things that they should be doing in order to be good students, good citizens, and productive. And if our government here did something as simple as holding themselves accountable to the same degree that they want to hold schools accountable, they get the budget done in short order.
Do you have any additional questions from anyone in the room?
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. And anyone that wants.
We will, the recording.